Hello there, and welcome to this special HarperCollins session at the Australian Booksellers Association Conference 2020. We're doing things differently these days, everyone is. My name's Catherine Milne. I am the head of fiction at HarperCollins, and I am here today to talk to two of my authors whose books are coming out later this year, Meg Mason and Stephen Conte. And I've got to say, I am so excited to be speaking to you about these authors because unequivocally, these are two of the very best novels I think I will ever publish in my career as a publisher. I am so excited about them. So very briefly, to introduce you to Meg and Stephen. Meg has been a writer for a while and a journalist. Her first book was a parenting memoir that HarperCollins published called Say It Again in a Nice Voice. And then in 2017, we published her first novel, which was an absolute in-house favourite called You Be Mother. And, you know, she did this thing with her second novel, Sorrow and Bliss, which is the thing that every publisher dreams of, which is that she just lifted. Meg, if you're feeling at all like you're going to blush, just cover your put your hands over your ears.
I'll just turn the brightness down on my system preferences. That's fine.
So we can't see your blushing.
Yeah.
But she just resoundingly and triumphantly, I think, found her voice as a literary writer. So this is incredibly exciting. This novel is dazzling and distinctive, and it is highly original and topical. You could compare her to Sally Rooney, Otesha Moshfegh, Taffy Brodessa-Akner, but with the wit and audacity and cleverness and the sly wit of Fleabag. Think a 21st century Nora Ephron. So Sorrow and Bliss, her novel, tells the story of a woman who goes through her life not realizing that she is missing a crucial piece of information about herself. And when she finally finds out what that piece of information is, it is almost too late. So it is a brilliant novel. And Stephen Conte. Stephen, wave at us, say hello.
Everyone.
Yes.
Thank you for waiting
Hello,
through that
Stephen.
introduction and not going off to get a cup of tea. That was very gracious of you.
Well, now I'm going to do exactly the same for Stephen. Look, some of you I know out there will know him. His debut novel, the best-selling The Zookeeper's War, won the inaugural Prime Minister's Literary Award and was shortlisted in that same year for the Commonwealth Writers' Prize and also the Christina Stead Award for Fiction. So already just on that CV alone, you know that he is a significant Australian writer. But with this, again, his second novel, again, Stephen has pulled it off. This is a prize-winning novel. It is masterful, it is rich, it is truly compelling, and I think he has stepped up into the ranks of one of our finest writers. So the Tolstoy estate, which is set in 1941 in the days of the doomed German advance into Russia, it's a novel about war, it's a novel about the bloody cost of conflict. It is also a poignant, bittersweet love story. And most movingly, it is one of those novels about books and the importance and power of literature to enhance our world. It is ambitious, it is accomplished, and it is astonishingly good. So with that, let us kick off. I'm just going to dive straight into it. For each of you, this is your second novel, and we all know what difficult beasts and how hard to wrangle a second novel is. Stephen, I'm going to start off with you. You were following up a prize-winning novel, which must have been difficult. I think there was at least one other novel, complete novel, you wrote between The Zookeeper's War and the Tolstoy estate. So tell me how you came to write this second novel and how it was for you, how the process was for you.
Yes, so of course it's been quite a journey, quite a length of time between books, and as you say, there was one in there in between. Sort of an ambition for me is to one day write about my own milieu in a way that readers find compelling. So as I was going on that particular writing journey, I came across a book courtesy of my mother. They say that, you know, often writers come from bookish households, and although I haven't given her explicit credit for this along the way, it was a book on her shelf, Journey Among Warriors by Eve Curie, which was laid the foundation, it was the seed for the idea of the book. So it's actually a fascinating book in its own right. Eve Curie was the daughter of Madame Marie Curie, the discoverer of radium, etc. And she was at the outbreak of the war, was already a famous writer on her own behalf, having written her mother's biography. She lived in Paris and made an escape across the Channel to escape the Nazis, and then went to the United States and was there because she was multilingual, and wrote brilliantly in many languages, was given a job by Time magazine to tour the war. So she was the lady reporter, the intrepid lady reporter, who set off in a flying boat, Casablanca style, across to the Caribbean, then across the Atlantic, from West Africa up to Cairo. She hangs out with Churchill's son Randolph, drinking whiskey in the desert, seeing the fight against Rommel, goes to Tehran, and then up into Russia, where she is escorted on a tour of the recently liberated Tolstoy estate. So it was just this remarkable account of her arriving there 3 weeks after the Germans had been there, and speaking to the local custodians, and immediately putting a finger on the awareness that everyone there at the time, the local custodians of this national shrine to Russia's literary great, were aware of the symbolic propaganda value of the struggle going on there, and really, perhaps because Russians being Russians and Germans being Germans, they understood the kind of metaphysical dimension of the struggle going on there. That Tolstoy, as the writer of the Russian resistance to a foreign invader in the form of Napoleon, represented the essence of the Russian will to resist. So from that point, it was just a way of finding characters to populate that world.
Absolutely extraordinary what you did. Did you find the writing of it difficult? Because it doesn't feel like that. It flows so easily. I remember reading the first chapter that you sent me back in, I think, 2016, which has remained almost unchanged. And that was when I got so excited that first time. But it feels like it just flowed out from there. So you didn't suffer like second novel blues, did you?
Look, I'm a careful, they say writers are on a spectrum between people who just let loose and gamble in the fields of creativity and language.
Who are these people?
and then the tortured others at the other extreme. Look, I'm a careful writer, and so sometimes I do it tough, but I suppose one of the beauties of the novel is that you can go back and you can find a unity of voice and so on. And certainly there were scenes that were right there from the word go and flowed. I mean, the scene of my hero Paul Bauer going through surgery for 40 hours flat. That was something with a lot of technical detail in it, and yet I wrote it in the sort of fever that Bauer would have experienced in that sort of extremis. And then, of course, a lot of the technical details about Second World War surgery are then finally crafted into that later on. Yeah, okay.
We'll come back to that because there's so much I want to talk about there. Meg, this again, Sorrow and Bliss, was your second novel. And you did go through a Herculean struggle, did you not?
I did. And actually, I sort of think of it as novel 2B, because there was a novel 2A that only you've seen and I have seen, although I've tried to block out the memory of that, which took all of 2018 to write, and it was awful. It wasn't even blood from a stone. It was like hitting yourself in the head with a stone and consequently bleeding. It was just the most awful experience. And I mean, it sounds dramatic to say, but by the end of it, when I emailed it to you with a note to say, please don't read it, I'm only sending it to you so you won't litigate. I just felt like it was over. I'd written one novel. It was fine. It probably wasn't everything I wanted it to be, but I did my best. And then I thought, I'll keep going. And I just felt like I didn't have anything else in that case, because I'd spent this whole year proving to myself that I couldn't, it was repetitious, and I think the greatest crime is it was boring. So before I sent it to you, I couldn't even bear to read it. So that didn't bode well for anyone else wanting to pay actual dollars for it. So I sent you
that was novel 2A.
That was 2A, and I sent it to you, and I was like, I'm so sorry, I can't do it, and this is the only thing I've really ever wanted to do since I was 7 or something. And so I goodbye, Catherine, forever. And then you told me to go away and have a little break, and that we'd probably be able to salvage it. But it was so rotten to me by then, I didn't want to salvage it, even though I know you would have so kindly dragged me through that process. And so I thought I won't ever start again. And then, of course, I think the definition of a writer is probably someone who can't help themselves. So that was about December. And then by January, I was like, oh, I do have this other sort of, a little scene came into my mind. And but I was so, again, slightly melodramatic, but it is part of the job description. I was so broken by the previous experience that I just sat down and wrote that one scene. And it wasn't a novel, it wasn't anything, it was just for my own enjoyment. And you'd said you have to write for yourself, and I've never really known what that meant, because you do get a bit hung up on writing for a market or what you think the market wants of you. And anyway, because it was just, I hadn't told you I was doing it, I hadn't told anybody, and it just kind of, in that safety and that lack of oversight, it just started coming out. But because it had been so, the effort and the striving of the previous year was part of what killed 2A. For 2B, I wrote rules for myself that were sort of up on the wall, that was, once I thought I'm going to write this, it was very much nothesaurus.com. If you don't know the word, you don't need the word. Just say what happens was probably the abiding principle of the entire thing. Just say it. So if she walks across the room, she doesn't saunter, she doesn't, you know, whatever, she doesn't wander, she just walks. So the style kind of evolved from that. And then once I had that style, and it was so much fun, and it was so joyful, and that joy stayed till the end, which I was so surprised, because I thought it was just going to be torture again, and I loved it. I was sad when I finished it.
It is so different to anything you've written before, and you can see the hallmarks of those rules that you had for yourself, because the writing is exciting and kind of so fresh and so original. Tell me the story in a nutshell. Tell me the story of the novel in a nutshell, if you can.
Mm-hmm. Well, you summarized it perfectly in terms of the plot, that there's a woman called Martha, and we meet her when she's 40, and she had some sort of medical episode when she was 17 that we hear about, where nothing was ever the same for her after that, a mental health experience, that nothing was ever the same, but she has never in that 20 years been able to find out what it is, just by a great deal of, you know, many doctors and many different diagnoses she talks about. It's as though she's trying to collect the whole set, because every doctor tells her something different. And by the time she's 40, she's given up looking. She just decides it's who she is. She's difficult, too sensitive. But her relationships, her career, her marriage have been so affected by this thing that we don't know what it is, that, you know, and she's lost a great deal of what she would have had in her life because of this thing that remains nameless. And then, as you said, when she finds out, the question is it too late? And I think, but overall, in a sort of genre way, I think it's probably a love story about the end of a marriage, and it's a coming of age about not coming of age till you're 41. And I hope it's funny in a sad way and sad in a funny way. So it kind of has that, well, the sorrow and the bliss really is what I've
Yes. It holds all of those contradictions within it. That's a beautiful description. Stephen, coming back to you, tell me again your novel in a nutshell. What is it about?
Sure, Catherine. I'm just going to leap back briefly to Meg, though, because I think I just wanted to comment while it's fresh that the sort of emotional directness there and witty self-deprecation, I think that's what I found in Sorrow and Bliss. That in the character of Martha, you know, managed to inject that in, and that's one of the lovely things about it. That you've got a character here there who's a truth teller and really direct and vibrant and.
Thank you. That's so nice.
Really enjoying.
Nice. Thank you. I can hang up now. That's nice. I'm gonna go and write that down. Stephen Conte said.
In terms of my novel, look, it's a story of a German military surgeon, Paul Bauer, who is part of the occupying force that sets up a field hospital at the former Tolstoy estate, Yasnaya Polyana, which is about 300 kilometers to the southwest of Moscow. And there he encounters the sort of fiery custodian, Katerina Trubetskaya, who is there in temporary charge of the estate. And she, you know, is, well, amongst other things, she's a former writer who, in a sense, lets out years of pent-up frustrations that she has towards her own regime. And, well, she's got plenty of reasons also, not just mere projection, but takes it out on the Germans and gives them hell, and just manages to survive the offence she's giving by the skin of her teeth. And I think, yeah, so it's just that encounter over 6 weeks, and then I've set up the novel in such a way is that that you get a sense of echoing down through the subsequent decades, the echoes and the consequences of this encounter. Because I really love compressing the story into that narrow time period, but I also wanted to have the book to have a greater resonance, because so many people's lives who lived in that era, well, had a 20th century resonance that, and who lived, so many ordinary people live epic lives.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Luke Slattery gave us a beautiful endorsement for the novel, and he said, this is an essential novel about essential things. And I absolutely agree with this, because it is a novel about love. It is a novel about the hostilities that people get caught up in. And if we think about the 20th century, that was, you know, particularly the latter half of the 20th century, it was this sense of these huge global conflicts that went on that ordinary people got caught up in. I think that one of the things that I found astonishing about your book was that it's historical fiction, but then you do this thing about halfway through the book, which is so, and I'm not going to give it away because no spoilers, but you do something that is so audacious in some ways, and it cracks open the novel from being a novel about World War II to being a novel about the 20th century.
I know the bit you're talking about, because I just finished the novel yesterday, and when it happened, I was like, oh, what did he just do? And so early, so much that would have naturally in another novel come at the end as the, and I was like,
exactly,
oh, it changes everything.
I know, like, and the first time it happens, you go, oh, this is not right. I don't want to leave these people. No, what are you doing? And then you just like, you're immediately in a kind of a different novel. It is so masterful. Were you aware of the risk you were taking, Stephen, when you did that?
Yeah, I was definitely, it was a structural challenge that I needed to solve. And, you know, every decision you make there are trade-offs. I was, in terms of injecting that sort of greater resonance into the middle of the story rather than the end, I was actually responding very directly to a dissatisfaction I had with a very well-known, not well-known novel, Captain Corelli's Mandolin, which is a terrific novel in many respects. I mean, I think the tone is a little lighter, perhaps, than, I mean, I like to think there's a lot of humour in the Tolstoy estate, but there's no Captain Corelli with his charming Italian ways. But in that novel, I found myself dissatisfied with the postscript, the epilogue, which is actually quite lengthy from memory, 60 or 70 or 80 pages, in which the later post-war lives of the characters are sort of just tidied up, and that felt it felt superfluous or tacked on, and I wanted something that was much more riveted into the structure of the novel, and where the suspense would then be acting on two levels. It would be acting on what's happening in this 6-week period there at the Tolstoy estate, and then what's happening in the lives of the characters later on.
Yeah, and that is so reflected in the reading, because you start reading the novel and it is Bauer's story, and it is a story of World War II. And by the end of the novel, it's really Katerina's story, and it is the story of resistance and survival and fiction and the importance of fiction and how that is layered into our everyday lives. And I must also pick up on the wit. You once described it to me as a dark Teutonic version of MASH, which I've kept in my head because I think that is a kind of a glorious description of this novel. Now, probably we're coming up against the time, but what did you uncover during the writing of this book that surprised or delighted you, Stephen?
Yes, well, I could bore the listeners with lots of little finer details about Second World War's historical discussion of what moment the war turned and so on. But I think it was really the experience of the Germans. I mean, I've made a bit of a study now of the other side, and it's just an ongoing discovery of of course, the breadth of the people involved on the other side and their humanity and so on. It's our Homeric age in a way because of the people from Allied nations. It was seen to be at least an uncomplicated struggle against tyranny and evil. And so the more I read about the other side and the moral complexities of that, not to be in a fighting for a cause for which you don't have any kind of moral clarity or even the illusion of moral clarity. That I keep on enjoying that.
Yes, and certainly Bauer has all of that. He's a good man who struggles with the system that he is serving under, but he is wedded to it at the same time. He has to. He's on the front line of it. Meg, what about you? Was there something that you uncovered in the writing of this novel that surprised or delighted you?
Well, I think obviously the main one is that I can write another book. That was a thrilling discovery. And just that it could be, because even when I sent you the first 40,000 words, which was actually a couple of days after I interviewed Trent Dalton for a magazine, and I still hadn't said anything to you at that time. And he was talking about his experience of writing Boy Swallows Universe. And now, please everyone enjoy the part in this interview where I compare myself to Trent Dalton. But he talked about how he'd be writing it and he felt electrified, and he felt like he was writing the book he was put on earth to write, and he would sort of get this fizzy feeling all up and down his arms, and he just knew that this was the story he was meant to be telling. And I was listening to him and just doing my professional journalism face while going like, oh my goodness, that's how I feel about this. And again, I am not on Trent's level, but it was a thing of maybe that means I'm writing something that isn't just me tinkering away for fun, and I could be watercoloring instead. And so when I sent it to you, and again, it was with a note saying, I don't know what this is. It just came out like this. I didn't say this to you, but I felt like it was the funniest career suicide note ever written, because I just thought, you just can't publish this. It's mad, and it's so staccato in its tone, and it's not novelistic. But then and as soon as I sent it to you, you said, thank you. And then a couple of days later, I was like, give it back. Don't read it. Please don't read it. Because I'd burst my privacy bubble. But then you said it was too late, and that we would do something with it. So I think my discovery was just that maybe there should be a feeling that it should be difficult and hard, because it's a hard thing to do, but there should be some internal sense of I'm doing the thing I'm meant to be doing, even if it may not ever see the light of day. This is how I should be doing this. And I think that's something I can take forward. If I try again, it'll be, I should feel a certain way. Maybe not like this, but there should be some compelling feeling.
One, I think you should try again. And two, there should be some multi-syllabic German compendium sort of a word that fits in all of that, the fear, the struggle, the hardship, and that feeling of the fizziness, going through your veins when you know that you're writing the right thing. And I'm sure, Stephen, that you felt that as well.
Yes,
absolutely. Because how could you not write that first chapter and not know here, it's all here. You know, the camaraderie between the men and the dark wit and the oozing mud and the biting cold, and suddenly they go through the gates and they realize they are on the estate of Count Leo Tolstoy, who wrote, you know, as you said, the paean of resistance novels to invaders, with, you know, War and Peace. So suddenly all of those things come together and you know you're on the right track. So to finish off, I suppose, you know, as a panel session about second books, you know, I suppose the thing is, it's like, how do you want people to feel after reading your book? Meg, final word. How do you want people to feel?
By chance, I was watching this amazing BBC documentary last night about Alan Bennett and his diaries, and he said the thing that the only thing a writer could hope for from a reader is at the end of the book they say, you know what it feels like to be me. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's exactly what I would hope, that people might feel seen in a way. And I'm not saying that I can, you know, describe everybody's experience, that I'm that skilled, but just that I think even a certain kind of person, and we talked about this before, that when I sat down to write this, I felt very much post-hope in my career and my existence, and it had been a hard couple of years, and I just felt like I was beyond hope. And I think that there is a sense that if I find a post-hope person, and the novel, although it is sad and it's a bit rough at times, it does end up on a hopeful note, which people have sort of early readers have talked about the hope at the end. And again, the same as you, Stephen, I didn't want to tie it off all neatly, because I think as a novelist that is the equivalent of, and we woke up and it was all a dream. And so you do want to leave some realism in there, that things are never neatly put away. But I think that there's a kind of hard-earned hope in there. And so if I found one reader who was feeling post-hope when they picked it up, maybe there's just a tiny chink of hope at the end that wasn't there before. That would be
beautiful. Beautiful. And Stephen, what about you?
I am hoping to shamelessly clutch to Tolstoy's coattails and to convey something of that sense of the richness of life, the moments of grandeur in life, the poignancy of it, and yeah, also the sadness of at one stage. Katerina talks about sadness being the coinage of a richly lived life. So I want readers to have a sense of that soulful Russian, if you like, engagement with the meaning and the breadth of existence.
Oh my God, well, I feel like I can't top that. I mean, I think you two just said it beautifully. So can I just say thank you? This has been lovely talking to you. I really hope Australian booksellers have now gotten an insight into both who you are and your brilliant, brilliant novels. And, you know, roll on September is all I can say.
I know.
So thank you so much.
Booksellers as well, because otherwise, without you guys, we would just put our novels straight in the blue recycling bin, because there's no one to help us get it out there. And I'm sure Stephen is the same, that we'll do anything to help move units, won't we? Of any book, not just our own, when we're all allowed out again.
You'll sign anyone's book.
That's yeah, absolutely. I'll sign War and Peace with you.
I endorse Meg's statement in every way.
All right. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.